So now we're going to try and implement the code which makes our hamburger menu that we've implemented and customized, makes it work. So when we click on different options, it will switch forms or take us to different parts of the app. So on the AppStudio documentation, we found the documentation for the hamburger, the bootstrap hamburger. And actually we have some sample JavaScript down here, which shows us how we can actually pick up on the choice of options that are pressed from the hamburger menu. So let's just copy and paste this code for now. So we'll copy that. And we notice that it's the on-click event for the hamburger. So we can, if we double click on any element, it takes us straight to the code, which is blank. And we could copy and paste this code like so. You might want to, it's useful to note, another way of getting here or creating an event is to right click on the control, and then you can go to an event and it will create that event for you. So there are lots of different types of events in JavaScript. There's the on-click event, which triggers when you click on the control. And there's also some others that are subtly different. So on mouse down or mouse move, mouse out. So this is if you're having a cursor that's moving in and out of an element, on resize, or on touch end, on touch start, or subtly different. But on click is the kind of simplest one that we need to use. So if we clicked on this menu, it would go to the code and it will have actually created a container function for us. Now we're just going to replace that and copy and paste the whole code that we grabbed from the documentation, and that will replace that. And we're safe because it's got the same control name. Of course, if we had changed the ID of the hamburger control, this would need to be changed as well. Okay, so let's look at this code. This first section here, this first if statement, we can just leave it as it is. This second one, now this is an example of where it's actually checking what the value is, okay, of the item that's been pressed. So if we remind ourselves of the values that we've got on our navigation, we've got home and we've got form 2. So why don't we change this to home and this to form 2. And the other two, we don't need these. Okay. Just a point to be careful of, make sure that you are typing the value exactly as it appears in the menu. So notice here, form 2, there is a space because it's looking at the string or the text that's in the item in that hamburger menu. So that's why we haven't done it like so, with no space. We are actually leaving a space. Here we have a comment. So the / is a comment in JavaScript, which means it doesn't do anything, but we can make a note for ourselves about what we're going to implement. So in this case, we want to switch the view to form 2, and we'll implement that in a minute. Up here, we've got some examples of how you can use the .hide and .show functions for controls. So we could hide and show controls if we wanted to. Actually, in this case, we don't want to do that. All we want to do is switch the view, in this case, to the home screen. So again, I'll make a comment just so it's easy for me to remember what I'm doing. This doesn't do anything. It's just a comment in the code that can maybe help explain what the code does. Can be useful if you're trying to work out what you're doing and help you remember what you're working on if you're trying to work on some sort of complex code. Okay, so how do we switch forms? Well, there is actually a function built in to AppStudio called change form. And this allows us to change the the current view to the form we want to specify. So if we click on Home, we want to change it to Form 1. Notice that the actual form is still called Form 1. We haven't renamed that. We could. We could change that to Home, for example, but it's still called Form 1. So we need to refer to it in our code as Form 1. Down here, if we clicked on Form 2 in the Hamburger menu, we'd want to switch the view to Form 2. So we'll implement that. Okay. And that's that. So let's see how that works for now. Before we do that, let's make our life a little bit easier so that we can identify what form we're on. So this is just for testing purposes. So what I'm going to do on Form 1, I'm going to drag a label into the middle, and I am going to change the text value, text content, to this is the home screen. Okay, and what we would do, let's just tidy up the layout. We will make it 100% width, and from the left, 0, and then we get a nice full width label that will always remain centered because we changed the align, the text align to centered. If we change it to left, it would go left. Right, it would go right, but we keep it centered. And this is a good example of how we make our layout responsive. It doesn't matter how wide our view is, this will always stay centered. Okay, so let's put another label on Form 2. So I can actually copy this. So right-click copy and go on to Form 2. Use Control V or paste, and that will paste the label. And let's make sure we need to change the text content because this isn't the home screen. This is Form 2. Okay, and you'll notice that in the Project Explorer, we've got another label that is nested under Form 2. It's been automatically called Label 1 Copy, which isn't a very nice name. So why don't we just change it to Label 2? We can do that. So we can rename the ID at any point. Okay, so now we've got two forms. The homepage form with a label on it that says this is the home screen, and we've got Form 2, which is not. Okay, so if we save and run this in our browser, okay, so this is a good sign. We can see that it's been updated. In our browser, we now got this is the home screen. Now let's try the menu. If we click on Form 2, and we switch to Form 2. So that works. The problem is here though, how do we get back to the home screen? Because we've got no navigation and we can't seem to go back. So what we need to do is make sure that the header and the Hamburger menu persist or stay on every form that we create. And that's what we'll look at in the next part of this tutorial.